You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 81. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how to stop over drinking in 90 days without missing out on life. If you're not an alcoholic, but fed up with saying yes to a drink when you mean to say no, you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about the discomfort equation. What is that, you might be asking? Well, all will be revealed. First, I'd wanted to start with a little story about discomfort, and discomfort in a way that serves us. And really that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So this morning I went for an early morning run. I haven't been for a few days. So I was feeling a bit lethargic about the idea this morning. I didn't really, in truth, want to go. And I certainly didn't feel like it, but I knew that once I got out, I would start to enjoy it, which I did. But I also knew that when I finished, that's when I would enjoy it the most. And so it has proven, right? As I write this podcast at my desk, I can feel a slight buzziness in my legs, right? It's a sign that my muscles have done some work, and that makes me feel good. This is when I get the pleasure that comes from the discomfort in the moment that I went through, right, before I went running. Actually, it was two types of discomfort. It was the idea of the running and actually, the physical effort involved in this. And we see this kind of tussle with ourselves when it comes to drinking, right? And this would show up as a time where maybe you have discomfort in the moment. Maybe you are really wanting to have a drink, but you're saying no, right? You're in that scenario and you're saying no. Or it might be where you want to go alcohol free, or maybe you just want to drink a glass less, right? And you're doing this and you can foresee that in the morning, you're going to feel so good. And you're going to feel that even though you're having this discomfort in the moment. And actually, it often is that you appreciate the morning all the more, particularly because of what you went through the night before. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, this idea of discomfort and really the different types of discomfort and what I call the discomfort equation. Now, actually, this whole episode is a bit of a riff on what I was discussing with my client Kathy a few episodes ago. And if you haven't listened to that one, I think it was episode 77, make sure you do. You will be so impressed with Kathy. She's a star. And one of the things that came up in my work with Kathy was that she sort of started out with this belief that she managed to dismantle for herself over the course of the coaching, but she had this belief that anything plus alcohol equals fun. Right, and so when she wanted to go to a sense of comfort in the moment, wanted to avoid the discomfort in saying no, then she would have a drink. And when you're looking at the world in that way, you are going to see that pretty much what happened on the other side of the equation was that pretty much anything without alcohol equaled no fun, right? So that was the discomfort that was felt. And I see that we do this, right? I see that we actually walk around with these kind of mini equations in our heads, weighing up what we're going to do and what the consequences are. And we're doing this even, by the way, if we're not aware that it's going on. And the thing is that when it comes to changing your relationship with alcohol, the thing I hear the most is along the lines of, well, I know I need to make this change. I know I actually do want to drink less, but what's that going to mean for me in my life afterwards, right? We're looking at and we're predicting the discomfort that is going to come in the future. And I want you to look to see if that's you, because that's where I was for sure, right? Dreary. I say this often on the podcast. Dreary was the word that I thought would describe my post-alcohol life. And by the way, going into this, I didn't even know really what sort of drinker I wanted to be. I certainly did not envision ever having no alcohol. I mean, that was just not on my radar. That was way too much. So I was even just talking about, toning it down a little bit. And what I'd be saying to myself, well, this is going to be necessary. I'll be more healthy. But it's going to be more dreary. But I kind of have to do it, right? So that's how I was looking at how my life was going to be. Kind of healthy but dreary. Postscript, it didn't work out that way, but that was where my mind was at that time, and perhaps that's you, perhaps that's what you're thinking. So I completely empathize with that. But then, to make matters worse, to get to that dreary place where I'm feeling maybe more healthy, but a bit more, everything's a bit less fun, I then realized I had to submit to more discomfort, right? I had to submit to the discomfort of not having a drink to relax when I came home from a stressful day in the office. Right? I knew that the drink in that scenario was fueling the habit, so I had to get out of that habit. I also had to submit to the discomfort of not having a chill glass of Chablis at the summer party. I had to submit to the discomfort of not just saying yes to mulled wine at a Christmas market, and on and on and on, right? I had to be willing to go through all of that just to achieve this life that I thought was going to be fairly uncomfortable anyway when it came to having fun. So that's where my brain went. But then, looking back, and actually as I was going through this, I realized that I was facing discomfort either way, even though my brain had painted this picture of, you're having fun now, you're going to have not so much fun in the future without the alcohol. What I hadn't factored in was actually there was already discomfort in the moment, right? So it's discomfort now or discomfort later. You can feel uncomfortable now when you turn down a drink, and maybe that's when, you feel all those feelings of feeling deprived, versus you can feel uncomfortable tomorrow with a hangover, right? But while they are both forms of discomfort, their impact on your life is wildly different. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So first I want to talk about intentional discomfort. Now I use and created a coaching framework that is in three pillars to it: intention, courage, and commitment. And the point here is that it's where we decide with intention how we're going to drink, right? We decide what relationship we want with alcohol, and we create plans to achieve that. And then we follow through with courage, and we repeat this again and again to strengthen our commitment to ourselves and to our desired relationship with alcohol, right? We strengthen our commitment to our desired end state. So when it comes to intention, this also includes intentional discomfort. This is where you're going to be doing things that don't feel good in the moment, but where you're deciding to do them anyway. What? You might be thinking, I thought changing my relationship with alcohol was because I want to change things so I get to feel more comfortable in my life, right? And that I don't want to drink so much. And yes, that might be the end state, but you aren't there yet. And by the way, intentional discomfort happens with any change, with anything new in your life. But I want you to consider, when it comes to intentional discomfort, if you're kind of fighting it and just sort of gritting your teeth and putting up with it, or if you're welcoming it in and what result you'll get. And I think a great example of this actually is my son, right? He's in his mid-20s, he's been actually in the world of work, but he's always wanted to be a vet. I mean, that's been his dream. And, it's many, many years of work, and he had some false starts and so on, but he just found he couldn't give up on this dream. And then he got himself on a veterinary medicine course, right? Cue cheers. I mean, this was a massive moment for him. What it meant, because of the circumstances of this course, it was back into dorms, right? Back into university, shared university dormitories, right? It meant loads and loads of tests and exams. It meant no money. I mean, remember, he'd been working. It meant all of that. Basically, he was signing up for, I think it's 6 years of day-to-day discomfort. But it's this discomfort that's going to enable him to qualify for his dream job. And in fact, he's 2 years in now, and he still tells me how happy he is to be doing this, how he can't believe he's really doing this, right? All the discomfort of dealing with his roommate and, all the exams, I mean, all of that, really having to have no money and all the rest of it, all that discomfort just doesn't come close to how motivated he's feeling, right? It doesn't reduce that motivation at all. In fact, I would argue it's making him more motivated, because the result he's going to achieve for himself It's going to mean so much more to him than if he'd just been handed it on a plate, right? What he's had to go through. So it's the same circumstance, right? Wanting to go back to train with all this day-to-day discomfort. You could look at it and say, I'm just going to find the whole thing just awful, or you can just go for it and say, yeah, I'm going to do this because it means so much to me. And I see this happening with alcohol, and we want to go in and change our relationship with it, right? You can have the discomfort of working on not over drinking, or you can have the discomfort of over drinking. Both are on offer. It's how you approach them and how you approach what you're looking for that makes the difference. So here's the thing about intentional discomfort. So that's when, we are saying, I know I need to do this thing, but you find it really hard, right? It's really hard in the moment to say no to the drink. That's a really good sign, right? Because think about it, when your brain is learning something new, when it's trying to make new neural connections, it's going to feel hard. You're just not so used to doing the thing, right? You're so not used to turning the drink down. You're not so used to listening to your own thoughts. You're not so used to choosing your opinion over your friends who might be saying, go on, Anna, you want it. And this is absolutely the same thing as when we do things like drive and we start a new job and when we're faced with learning loads of new processes, learning a new language, any change. It's going to be hard at first. We talk about this. We say it needs a lot more brain power because it does. So that's part of it, right? It's a skill set thing. That's why it can feel hard and uncomfortable. But like I said about my son just now, the process of this change and this discomfort doesn't have to come with negative emotions, because that's when we go from finding something hard to making it into a struggle. It's when we say things like, oh, I shouldn't have to go through this, or I should know how to do this by now. This shouldn't be so hard, right? When we go through all that judgment, and that's where struggle lives. So that's the first thing I'll say, just drop the judgment. If you're sitting there listening to this, thinking, but how? Try this. Try telling yourself, look, I'm just learning something new. I'm learning how to drink differently. This is a new skill I'm developing. That's all. Right? That's a way to handle this. So once again, the discomfort is a sign that your brain and body are working on changing the habit of creating a new normal. And that's what we want, right? We want the new habit to come. Now, going into this, you're probably likely pretty certain that you're going to reap long-term rewards from this change, right? If you've already seen on the evenings when you don't overdrink or manage to go alcohol-free, you've seen the mornings are much brighter. You're going to sleep better. You're going to wake up feeling better. You're going to get more time to yourself in the morning. You're going to feel more ready for the day ahead. I mean, all of this stuff, right? We all know. As people say, I know all of that, right? So we know that that's going to be there. But I want you to look at what happens, right? That positive result doesn't mean that it's going to still feel comfortable in the moment when you're on the way to get that positive result. In the moment when you turn down the drink, when your brain is used to saying yes, you're not going to like the idea. You're not going to enjoy the experience. You're going to maybe think, oh, this is a terrible idea. You're going to maybe blame yourself for making the stupid decision. I used to do this all the time, to not drink that night. And that was something I used to say. I mean, whose stupid idea was this? Mine. I would like to try and forget that, right? So it's all going to feel super uncomfortable and you are not going to like it. But let's say you're willing to do it. You're willing to feel deprived and left out, and you're willing to think it's not fair and all the rest of it. So if that's you, let me ask you this question. Does this discomfort just happen to you? Or does it come intentionally from your decisions? And you might say, well, yes, I suppose to. I suppose it's because I've decided I want to drink less. Now, even if you're doubting yourself in that moment, you still know that there is a reason behind the actions you're taking in the moment, right? You know you're actually choosing this discomfort rather than the discomfort of waking up every morning asking what the hell happened last night, right? Why can't I ever learn, right? You know that. And you can even think that it makes sense, right? This is a sign, as I said just now, that you're changing the habit and that this discomfort is helping you to grow. It's a step towards where you want to be, to where you can take alcohol or leave it, or maybe where you can drink one and call it good, right? Where you can come home from work and be willing to feel restless rather than pour a glass and drop into immediate relaxation, because the act of feeling that level of discomfort is a sign that the change is happening, right? Where you can decide that you don't need to feel good right now. You just don't. Not all the time. And not just because you don't like how the current moment feels, right? If you've had a heavy day at work, you're likely to feel stressed, right? So what? It doesn't mean that something has gone wrong. It just means you have the human experience of stress right now. That's all. Nothing to fix. And I want you to consider what's on the other side of all of this intentional discomfort. And that's where the wonder, the magic happens. Because when you can see and experience firsthand that you don't need a glass of white to feel good, where you can be stressed and not freak out, where you can feel anxious and not beat yourself up about it, where you're willing to feel any emotion, because when you are willing to feel any emotion, there is nothing you aren't willing to do. And that starts by embracing the discomfort in the moment. And if you're sitting there thinking, this sounds awful and terrible, I thought this was meant to be a podcast that was encouraging me to take the action, to do the thing, and you're not selling it, Anna, I have something else to offer, because I do know that I'm sitting here with a hard sell. I'm basically saying you can have a glass of wine and feel better, or be willing to sit with all the stress, right, and just suck it up. But here's the thing. Here are 2 reasons why this is a good idea. Firstly, like anything else, it does get easier, because you will start to see that the discomfort that you fear is actually not so bad. It actually doesn't last that long. And that's one of the things my clients say to me repeatedly about urges to drink. You know, we so hate the idea of that deprivation, of missing out. But when I ask them what their actual experience is of urges, I mean, really, they often say something like, well, the urges actually weren't that bad. They didn't last that long. They're just a series of uncomfortable moments. But there is a really good side to urges. Not only does the sense of discomfort not last for long, when you get through it, when you reach the other side, you're going to feel so much pride in yourself that you stuck with it, that you did it. Just like my run this morning. I'm so glad I went out to do it. Even though my brain offered me so many reasons why it was a bad idea and why staying in bed for a bit longer was so much better way to live. So that's the first reason it gets easier. Second reason why going towards intentional discomfort and not viewing it negatively is a good idea is that you'll actually get less overall discomfort. And this is actually the thought that really kept me going through the process as I was transforming my relationship with alcohol. Right? I said earlier, it's discomfort either way. Discomfort now through saying no, or discomfort in the morning with the slow start and so on. But then I realized if I experienced the discomfort now, eventually it would stop feeling so hard. It was kind of like a time-limited offer, right? But if I kept giving in and avoiding the discomfort in the moment and drinking and suffering the discomfort the next morning, well, that was just going to last longer and longer. And the overall experience would be that I would get more discomfort, right? Because every time I had a drink in response to an urge, I was closing the drink reward loop, I was strengthening the habit and taking myself further away from my desired goal, which led to what? More over drinking, and often in response because I was feeling really judgy of myself. Right? This produced more of the thing I really didn't want over more time. So I wasn't even standing still. I was actually making it more difficult for myself in the long run to achieve my goal. And then add on to that all the shame and all the thinking I'm such a screw up. Why did I give in again last night? I can't believe I was so weak, and all the rest of it. And none of that beating myself up about any of that stuff ever motivated me to make the change, ever. And again, it was just going to go on for longer and longer and longer. Whereas if I was just able to deal with the discomfort in the moment, in the process of saying no and dealing with more of my emotions, not only was it getting easier, but the amount of time I was going to have to then experience this was getting shorter and shorter. So that's what I have for you today, right? The choice is yours. The discomfort equation means you have discomfort either way. No alcohol now means feeling discomfort in the moment that's going to get less every time you allow those emotions to be there. Whereas alcohol now means feeling long-term discomfort that grows every time you give in and keep yourself stuck. So which are you going to choose? Which result are you going to create for yourself? Thank you so much for listening. That's all I have for this week. But if you do want a guide to help you through the temporary discomfort, to keep you motivated and keep you working towards your desired outcome, I can help. I've been there, I've done it, I've helped many others to achieve the same for themselves. It's so much quicker and not at all lonely with me by your side. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol quickly, let's talk. To coach with me starts with an initial consultation call, which is free. So go to 90dayslater.co and get on my calendar by clicking the book a call button. And I'll see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. And we do it in 90 days. The effect is permanent. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.